Hello and welcome back to the Powder Blues podcast, where every Thursday we'll be talking to you about everything Philadelphia Phillies baseball. Today, we're recording on Wednesday, but at the time of the release, it is Thursday, May 20th. And pretty much what we'll be discussing mainly here is the question, is Joe Girardi holding the Phillies back this year? I think that he is. Frank, on the other hand, thinks that he is doing well as the Phillies skipper this year. But before we get into the main topic, we're just kind of cover the basics here by starting off with the JT injury. I can start it off, and Frank, you can go into a little bit more detail. If you don't remember, Real Muto initially suffered this injury trying to block a wild pitch April 29th in St. Louis. The ball bounced in the dirt, struck him on the bone at the base of his left hand beneath the heel of his catcher's mitt, sort of near the wrist. He played through the issue for a few weeks. It kind of lingered, and it flared up over the weekend, and he had to leave Saturday's game against Toronto. And Realmuto has been out of the Phillies starting lineup for a third straight game. Again, we're recording now on Wednesday. We're not sure what Thursday's lineup looks like. And yeah, he was out tonight, Wednesday, at the time of recording with a bone bruise at the base of his left hand, again, near the wrist.
Yeah. Apparently he was in a PR press conference, and he flipped it over to reveal that there was the bone bruise. You could see it. You could see it was swollen. But the good news is that it's looking like probably won't go to the IL because they're thinking that they're kind of taking it just day by day. Recently he had an MRI on the hand, and it said it revealed no structural damage, so that's good. Like AJ said, it was just kind of like there was still fluid in there, and you can see that it was swollen. There was a bruise there, but yeah, like we said, we don't know what tomorrow's lineup is. I mean, there were talks that he could play today, but after seeing the lineup, obviously he didn't, so he was out again for a third straight game. But it's from the Phillies and JT. If he goes to the IL, it'd be shocking.
Yeah, it's mainly all about, like, his injury is mainly about the swelling and the fluid in his hand, and they're just kind of waiting for that to go down before he can get back in. I remember he was saying that he can swing a bat right now, but not very effectively. So they're just kind of waiting for that swelling to go down. But as Frank said, they were talking about the 10-day IL. Real Muto said it was definitely something we were talking about the last 2 days. We made the decision on Monday that it was close enough to being ready that I didn't need to go on the IL. The swelling is down quite a bit from where it was. It's in a lot better shape than it was 3 days ago, and we've been treating it as much as possible. Hopefully within the next day or two, it will be quite a bit better. Girardi later said, hopefully we'll have him in a starting lineup Thursday or Friday. But every day, you come in, you're not sure. Bone bruises can be tricky, but we feel like he's making the progress we need for him to make in order to be back in the lineup in hopefully the next day or two.
Yeah. So hopefully we get the best catcher in baseball back soon, because Jacob Tyler is very key to this lineup, and defensively and offensively. So hopefully we can get him back.
Definitely. And we're kind of slightly decimated with injuries. Harper's kind of just lingers. I'm not sure if he's 100% right now, but a little concerning from Bryce. That's part of my gripe against Girardi, but we'll get into that soon. Go ahead, Frank, you could take it away.
On the subject of injuries, Joe Girardi, obviously the subject of our debate tonight, but that's later in the podcast. But Joe Girardi has said in a recent article for the Philadelphia Inquirer that he is concerned about the amount of players, not just on the Phillies, but in the MLB getting hit by pitches this season.
Yeah, it's definitely been like a huge issue. Phillies fans saw it, front row and center with Harper. What was that in St. Louis?
And Didi,
And
back to
Didi
back.
as well, back to back. Yeah. It's these high velocity guys who they don't really focus on command, just control, really. And they just try to put it up high, down low, in a specific area, but they're not hitting spots, they're hitting areas, which is a problem because it ends up resulting in less command and more guys being hit by pitches.
Yeah, on obviously Kevin Pillar got hit by a pitch. Obviously, he's on the Mets, but you don't want to see anybody hit in the face by a pitch. In this article by Bob Brookover, he said Joe Girardi said he screamed loud enough Monday night to stun the rest of his family. But yeah, and also in this article, it also has interesting stats that like players getting hit by pitches have been on the rise in the last 4 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to do about that. I feel like there's only really 2 options, one of which players would be fine with. One, the less favorite option among players would be give them like face masks or face guards. I think some of them wear it in softball. I'm not entirely sure. But something like that, which I don't think they would want to do. That's like trying to give NHL players cages, the helmets with cages.
Yeah.
But the other option is to move the mound back to try to give these batters more time to react. Because the whole problem is it's like late reaction because you have these high velocity pitchers, which then batters, in order to catch up to the high velocity, they have to swing sooner and commit sooner. And when you're swinging sooner, you're opening yourself up, which then results in your face being exposed for, unfortunately, it to be hit. Yeah. So moving the mound back a bit, as Joe Girardi did mention in this article, is potentially on the horizon.
Yeah. I don't know if moving the mound back would definitely give more time because well, even if you move it back, if they're still throwing 100 miles an hour, what's it gonna take? What does it take now? Like 2 seconds to get there? It's like physically impossible for you to move out of the way of something going 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's why race cars don't have brake lights, because it's physically impossible for a human to react to something that fast and move out of the way or stop. The other thing is that like maybe more players should start. I mean, Joe Girardi also said in this episode that like maybe this wouldn't help, but it could have like helped a little bit, that the face thing off the ear that goes down to like the mouth, kind of.
I think they call that a C flap.
Yeah, put those on, like maybe make it required or something. Again, we don't know if that would have helped. Maybe it would have stopped it. I mean, it didn't really help Bryce, but yeah, I see the mound moving back before I see face masks or full face helmets
Definitely
in the batter's box.
Um,
Because it is kind of a part of the game. Because then what are you going to do? What do you protect your face, but then the rest of your body is exposed? So what are you going to just go up with an entire football pad set up? Like, no, it's not going to happen. So the mound moving back is definitely more realistic than like a face mask or something.
Mm-hmm. I think we kind of covered all bases dealing with that, but sticking with Joe Girardi, folks,
debate time.
Yeah, it's debate time, folks. I think it's time to get down to the main topic here. Is Joe Girardi holding the Phillies back this year? Again, I think they are. Frank thinks otherwise, and we are going to go back and forth on this. So we both kind of created our own little lists, I guess you could say, with Frank, why he thinks he's been good for the Phillies, and for myself, why I think he's holding them back. And we're just kind of going to go through them one at a time, and we're just going to critique each other's points. So Frank, he can go first with his pros.
Oh, are you sure?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So my first topic. So I guess we can each say one topic and then we go back and forth. I
Okay.
think we should do that.
Yeah, we can do one
So my
pro and
first
then
top.
one con.
Mhm.
Per.
So my first point is, so I'm assuming you have things about 2020 on this list.
Actually, I don't have a single one from 2020. It's all from this year.
Okay. Okay. Because I was gonna say, I'll still say it. Obviously, last season was obviously unprecedented, 60-game season in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
But I believe, I have said this multiple times, and I still stand by this. I will go to the grave saying this, that the Phillies would have made the playoffs last year if they weren't so injured. Now, would we have gotten crushed by the Dodgers in the first round? Yes, probably. But would we have been in the playoffs? Yes. So that was my thing. If that was my first point, if you had stuff about 2020 on there, but you don't. So, I mean, you could still say stuff about it.
I don't think we would have made it if we were healthy, because the offense was already on fire. It's just the bullpen was catastrophic, and there was no getting around it. So I think that would have been our Achilles heel. I mean, even if we somehow did fall onto a playoff spot, I don't think we would maybe even win a game, because that bullpen is just, it was god awful, obviously. So I don't think that we would have made the playoffs personally.
No, I never said we were going to win in the playoffs. We would have played.
Yeah.
If we would have made the playoffs, we would have been the eight. Well, technically, last year they did it differently because it was like the 8 teams. We would have been the 8 seed. And we would have had to play the Dodgers, and we weren't beating that. We weren't beating the Dodgers. Let's
No.
put that out there right now. We're all realistic here. We weren't doing it, but no. But what I'm saying is like when we were fully healthy. Okay, when we were fully healthy and still, we were winning games, obviously the bullpen was giving a lot away, but we were still winning them. And we were in a wild card spot up until like 2 games to go. And then we just went on like a losing streak at the end of the season that got us out. So when we were healthy, we were in a wild card spot for the majority of the season. It was us and the Reds. I remember it was us and the Reds in the 2 wild card spots.
It's just, I don't think that bullpen would have gotten us there. I just don't think, I don't think Girardi got a fair shake last year because of the bullpen and the injuries. I will say that Girardi last year, that was a fraudulent team. So I don't blame Girardi last year, although last year I didn't think he was too thrilling. I wasn't too thrilled by his decision making or much of it. Like I remember, I think opening day, it was like I don't remember it exactly. It was a long time ago, but it was like a very close game. I remember, I think, and he brought in like a rookie bullpen arm that we've literally never heard of, and that was like his first game, and he was like hit around. So, I mean, his decision making hasn't been on point last year, but this year more so, I believe. But I don't really blame him last year. It was a fraudulent team, terrible bullpen, injuries. Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID as well. That was a big hurdle to get over. So
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't know. So much like our previous episode, we don't know each other's lists. So I didn't know if you had anything about 2020 on there. That was my thing for 2020. So you can go to your first point now.
okay. Let me
AJ
see
needs to
here.
pull up his fancy Word document.
Yeah, I have a whole Word document all typed up and it's all formatted neatly. uh, but
It's not
anyways,
12-point font, but well,
actually, it's 11.
it's still not official.
True. Anyways,
Times New Roman 12-point font. Leave this in.
I
Times New
will.
Roman 12-point font.
I thought it
But
was 11.
we won't. No, it's 12. No, it's 12. That's what most schools want.
Maybe.
Okay, we're getting all okay.
Yeah,
This can be another.
we digress. Anyways, so my first point is kind of like a multi-point thing bunched in one. So I'm just gonna kind of it's not huge. It just takes a minute to get out. But pretty much Girardi has had questionable decision making left and right this year. For example, tonight, he had Ronald Torreyes play over Nick Maton at shortstop, which makes no sense as Maton. Now, people out there, they're like, oh, well, it's the lefty. They have a lefty pitcher and or they're giving Maton a night off. Well, they had a night off Monday. And Maton is hitting amazing versus lefties. He's batting 404 versus lefties with a 656 slugging percentage. He's their hottest bat right now. Arguably, he's their hottest bat. I think he is undoubtedly. So why would you favor a bench veteran, Ronald Torreyes, over your rookie stud in Maton? Girardi, he's had this obviously annoying bias towards Torreyes, but I don't think that should lead him to play Torreyes over Maton, especially when the team is hurting for bats with, Gregorius and JT out. I don't think that taking someone who's has a hot bat right now out of the lineup is really a good idea.
No, no, I'll agree with you with that. I mean, no one's arguing that he makes questionable decisions. Um, I the only thing I can see with that is like Torres was really a big part of that 7 inning what was it 7 run eighth inning in the first game of the Marlins series. So maybe he was like, you know what, let's give Nick a night off, see what Ronald can do. Maybe he still has that magic to be another bench bat, seeing what he's got, because it is still, I mean, technically early in the season, but technically now that we're doing the full 162. So that's the only thing I could see that he's kind of like seeing what he's got, because, why not try it now? I mean, obviously don't try it when you're fighting for a playoff spot, but why not try it now? But yeah, I could see. Yeah, I agree. Like he should have. Like Maton probably should have started. They did have a night off just 2 days ago, so everyone was rested. So yeah, I don't know why
Yeah, and
he would.
sorry, I don't mean to end you abruptly there, but I'm not saying that Torreyes is a bad player. I mean, he came off that COVID list for a very long time, and he delivered with a big hit in that huge inning. But I don't think you can really play him over Maton after one thrilling at bat, you know. But that's
Yeah,
my
but I don't know.
there's my first point. So we can go to you now.
My first point is also kind of like yours, like kind of like multi-pointed. I just gotta get a lot out. So first of all, like just his experience, what he brings to the table. I mean, people don't know. I mean, he's most known for for being the Yankees manager. He won the World Series with them in 2009. I think over the
Loaded
Phillies,
team.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, over the Phillies, right? He was 2010 manager of the year. He was the 2010 AL All-Star team manager. His career record as a manager is 1,038 and 846. I mean, he got his 1,000th win with the Phillies. So just the experience he brings to the table with this team, that can lead them far just in and of itself. So
Yeah. I will say though, he did have a stacked team carrying him in 2009, but that's beside the point. he does have experience. That's always, nice. That's what Kapler was obviously missing. And I think that's why he instantly got a bad rep with Phillies fans and why he was given such a short leash with Phillies fans.
Hmm.
But I don't think his experience should really, overrule all of his, mistakes. But I do agree that his experience, it's reassuring. That was definitely one of the big things when he came to the Phillies. I was like, yes, we have someone with true experience, someone who has seen every, end of the diamond, and he's been successful in the past. So that was reassuring, but I also don't think that it should override and overrule all of the mistakes that he has made so far this year, especially recently.
Yeah. There's going to be some mistakes. I mean, and nobody's perfect, but like you said, the experience, and especially like I was going to say, with probably the most storied franchise in the history of Major League Baseball with the Yankees.
Yeah.
So that was my first point, just the experience that he brings to the table in Philly that, that I'll say that in my next point, but just as a teaser to my next point, that not a lot of prior Philadelphia sports teams coaches had.
Okay. Yeah, I agree partially. Um,
What?
but yeah, my next point. So like keep in mind, I like Girardi. I like him as a manager, as a person, everything. But I also have a problem with the way he's been managing. But anyways, continuing on, um, another gripe that I have, and all of my points are pretty recent, but he had Bryce come into play and swing pretty violently when he was obviously injured, his shoulder during the last game versus the Blue Jays, which in my mind, that was dumb. What if Bryce worsened that shoulder issue? What if, it became a big IL stint? And Girardi even later said in an interview that Bryce had to talk him into letting him play, and that I was concerned. That's what Girardi said. Girardi said, "quote I was concerned," on end quote, when he was batting. So he wasn't even sure when he was batting. He could have been, putting him out to just get injured. I think that was reckless.
You said that was the last game of the Blue Jay series?
I believe it was. I might be wrong. Yeah, it was
So,
the
but
last game versus Toronto.
yeah, I didn't watch that game because it was a day
Yeah,
game. Or no, it wasn't a day game, was it? Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't able to watch it, so I didn't know anything that happened there.
yeah,
What you just said to me was my first time hearing about it. So, but from what you said, I mean, we all know Bryce is a tough guy,
hmm
and I'm not surprised that he talked Joe into letting him bat. I'm not surprised that like he went up to him and said, "Hey, let me bat," and that he was concerned. But I don't know, because if it really comes down to the player, doesn't it? Like if the player feels good, if the
yeah,
player feels good enough to convince their manager to go in and bat, like who are you? Because then what if, say, okay, in a hypothetical world, say Bryce goes in like hits a home run. What if he hadn't let him go in? That would have changed the entire landscape of the game. So in a way, yeah, I agree with like probably not going in, but at the same time, Bryce is one of the toughest guys on the team. So that if he's feeling good and up to it, he can go bat if he needs to.
yeah. I agree. Um, it's just the whole bench was pretty much hurt that game, so he didn't really have that many options. Well, any other options to go to. But at the same time, I just think it's a little bit reckless to throw him in there because we know Bryce. He plays hard. That's the way he's always been. He plays as violently as possible. which unfortunately I think that's catching up to him. I think he's starting to, at his old age of 28, he's starting to get a little bit injury prone. Well, not injury prone, but a little more prone to injuries than he was previously. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of putting him in there. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my
So
there's my second point. So now the ball is in your court.
the one thing that Girardi has been good at, and I think that this has been going on, this has been a recent culture shift in not just the Phillies culture, but in all of in really all of Philadelphia sports, because I'm sure that people who listen to this podcast don't just watch the Phillies. You're probably a Sixers or a Flyers fan, not AJ, not a Flyers fan, but
Go Pens.
yeah, you're
We
either
just
like
lost. We just lost all Philadelphia Phillies fans.
yeah, just with those two words, we just lost you all. But no, the reaching culture shift. So everyone knows that Doc Rivers has come in to be the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, and he is not he's not in this one article I read. I love this article a lot, by Marcus Haynes in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And the first line is Doc Rivers isn't coddling Sixer stars Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons when they stink. And I love that quote because it's true. Doc Rivers is known for being hard on his players and wants the best out of them. And he's been proven, obviously, Joel, arguably the MVP of the NBA this year. And I'm not going to butcher his name, so I'm just going to say AV, the head coach of the Flyers, is holding the captain, the veteran, Claude Giroux, accountable, holding the future of the franchise, Carter Hart, accountable for when he makes mistakes. I think one time he even said yeah, he's got to do better. He's got to play better. The whole team does. And Joe Girardi is basically following that same path, because we all know what happened on Sunday between him and Segura. So he was adamant that Joe was not talking about it.
It's very ironic you say that, because my very next point has to do with that very exact exchange.
Yeah.
So we'll stick on yours, and then that'll be a good transition.
Because so he was obviously adamant he wasn't talking about it. So basically, for people that don't know, obviously AJ will go into it more. Segura committed an error, and they got into it because Joe was saying, don't do anything fancy. We just need to just get the ball, just get him out. And so yeah, he holds the players accountable. He holds, like, do you think Gabe Kapler would have done that? No. Do you think if Bryce was playing bad, do you think Gabe Kapler would have said anything to him? I'll give you the answer. No.
See, now this point I completely agree with, especially when it comes to the Gabe Kapler thing. Because remember when McCutchen tore his ACL in 2019 and Segura did not run out. I think it was like an infield, or no. It was a pop fly, and they let it drop so that way they could try to get the double play, because Segura was not busting it out of the box like he should. Now, I am not the biggest Segura fan. He's playing great this year, but I think I'm not a huge fan of him. I think he is a lazy a double scribble. I do agree with Girardi, calling players out and all that. But like back to what I was saying, in 2019, when Segura didn't run that out, which pretty much did result in McCutchen's ACL tear, do you really think Girardi would have let Segura go scot-free like Kapler did? Because Kapler didn't even bench him. He played the very next game, I'm pretty sure. I remember hearing an article as well that said right after, that whole debacle with Segura not running that out, which led to McCutchen's ACL tear, Kapler, he claimed that he had a serious talk with Segura in the clubhouse or something. And then Segura later on in an interview said, I didn't have to talk with Kapler. What are you talking about?
You can't be soft in Philly. The fans don't let you,
Mm-hmm.
especially because that is what it seems like. I know we're just a strictly Phillies podcast, but the Philly sports, when you think of Philly sports, you think of the fans, and the fans do not let you get away with anything.
No,
When you're
sir.
doing a bad job, they let you hear about it. They let you hear about it. And that's what the new culture kind of is in Philly right now. Girardi's coming in, holding players accountable, and yelled at him in the dugout. Doc Rivers coming in, warning Joel Embiid during the summer, saying, "Hey, I'm not Brett Brown. Brett Brown, being not holding Joel accountable to be like his best." Doc Rivers comes in and says, "Hey, if you play at your best, we can be great." And they're the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And now that and especially with the Eagles too, Peterson never really like criticized Wentz. Now Sirianni has to take on that thing and be the next tough guy in Philly for all four of
Mm-hmm.
them to have the new tough guy era in Philly. And I am very happy that there's a tough guy era now for the coaches.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I want to make explicitly clear is I was very against Kapler. I think I always get into this debate with one friend. His name's Jake. Kapler, I do not like very much as a manager. My friend Jake, he loves him as a manager, as do many fellow people on Twitter. They
Is he a Giants fan?
no. He is a Phillies fan, but he never wanted the Phillies to get rid of Girardi Kapler. There are a lot of people out there who love Kapler. They wish he was still managing for us, which boggles my mind. Like, I just want to make it clear. I think Kapler needed to go. I didn't like him. He didn't hold players accountable. He wasn't exactly smart. He didn't make great decisions. I just wasn't a fan. Do I think Girardi is an upgrade? Of course. Do I think Girardi is doing a good job? Uh, Not exactly.
What do you mean not doing a good job? Like in what respect?
Like his decision making, mainly. Like I think his decision making has cost them several games.
Well, that was your first point,
Yeah,
the decision making.
that's kind of like the whole thing. Like
That's your whole theme.
my first point was he makes bad decisions, and the rest of my points are pointing out every single bad decision he makes on a consistent basis.
So that was my second point. Your turn. Ball is in your court.
Ball is in my court. Okay. Well, it kind of piggybacks off that. I think Girardi, while I was happy that he held Segura accountable for that lazy play when he was like lollygagging to the ball and pretty much gave up, what was it, a couple runs there uh, throughout the rest of the inning. But it wasn't good. And I'm glad he held him accountable. But I think he did it in a terrible fashion. I think he handled it terribly. I think Girardi, I think that's something, I think that's a conversation that occurs in the clubhouse after the game. I think in the dugout when the cameras are rolling in front of fellow teammates, that's not good. It needs to happen in the office or in some other secluded place for just the two of them to talk. Because Segura, he's a grown man. He doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of the cameras for everyone to watch. He doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of his fellow teammates who are also grown men. You know, he doesn't want that to happen. And that just causes a ruckus in the dugout, causes a disruption, and people are, not focused on the game. They're focused on what's going on over there, and Segura had to be held back, which is a little bit concerning. Um, Again, I don't like Segura very much. I think he's lazy. I mean, there's a reason why he's pretty much passed around team by team every couple of years or so, There's some factor that goes on behind closed doors that teams don't like and eventually decide, hey, let's move on because this ain't working. But secondly, what I didn't like about Girardi here, he couldn't even face the music in the post game interviews, and he couldn't answer questions. He's like, oh, he was all angry, and if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do it when the cameras are on for everyone to see, at least answer the questions, or answer them slightly, and not even in like an aggravated manner. He was like, oh, why are you asking me? You shouldn't have done it for everyone to see. That's a private thing, a private conversation that you want to have. And I think that was unprofessional on his end.
I'll start with the second part with the press conference. I would have to disagree because I don't think it should be talked about until both sides like are ready to talk about it. Like, because okay, Girardi's gonna say one thing, and then what's Gene gonna do? He's probably gonna say this. He's probably gonna say the opposite. So I can agree with Joe in the way that he shouldn't talk about it. I don't really think those things really should be talked about with the media because the media will blow it completely out of proportion, like we're doing right now. So I don't think he was wrong in that part. He was a little angry.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny, but not really. They're just doing their job.
Yeah. It's just my thing is if he can't own up to his mistake there, face the music and respond to the questions, he's in, no spot to be all aggravated. You shouldn't have done it in a public manner. If you don't want people to ask you about it, do it behind the scenes, not for everyone to see. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, my next part, obviously, with the first and doing it in public. See, that's tricky. In my opinion, that's tricky because say this isn't Segura's first offense. You can agree with that, can't you?
Oh yeah, he's had many lazy incidents in the past, many.
So this is where I'm like, did this kind of need to happen? Like, that you can talk behind closed doors all you want.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to translate to the field? Because you've seen it in like every form of like, not even just sports, just in life. You could say something to someone behind closed doors and say like, hey, this isn't working. But once it happens like at the thing they're doing wrong, what tends to happen? It normally changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, it's kind of like, did this almost need to happen in the middle of the game in front of everybody to kind of like wake Gene up and be like, hey, we got to stop with the showboat and we got to stop, got to get to the ball hustle, throw the ball, get the outs, win games. So that's my thing about that. But it is tricky because like if this wasn't Gene's first, like if this was like a one-off mistake, then it is not called for at all. But we all know Gene's history. No matter how, I don't care if he's hitting perfectly. You got to back it up in the field.
Yeah. You don't want to be
Go ahead. I know you
a dead weight on any side of the ball. But my thing is, you were talking about, you need to have something that is a real wake-up call to Segura. I agree. This was one way to do it. I disagree with the way he did it. Another way to really, give Segura a rude awakening. Yes, have that conversation behind closed doors, but then say, yeah, Segura, you don't care about defense. It seems like, you don't want to, care too much about that. But what you do care about is at bats and offense. So instead of me just having this conversation with you and this, we're just going to move forward. I don't care if you're hot or not. You're going to sit a week. And if you can't, put it together, and if we run into this problem again, then it's going to be like a couple weeks, maybe even a month, until you finally realize that defense matters and busting it out of the box matters. So if you really want to take if you really want to give a player a rude awakening and you really want them to, give it their all if they're very clearly not, you got to take away at bats because that's what they care about most.
I agree. I mean, obviously the dugout confrontation wasn't the best way to do it. I'll agree with that it wasn't the best way to do it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think either of those things would have helped because, like you said, the two, like taking away at bats is very important to players, and I think that would have worked as well. But like you said, it was like that's embarrassing. Like why? Like it's embarrassing, and like kind of what I'm trying to say is you caused that, right? You caused him to go at you and like embarrass you. So why keep doing it? You don't want to be embarrassed on national. Well, it wasn't nationally televised. You don't want to be embarrassed in front of Philly fans. Oh God, you don't want to be embarrassed. One, in front of them. Two, in front of your teammates. They're both wake up calls. I agree. So, it's just the way it could have been handled. I agree, maybe a little bit differently, but I think either way would have had a good outcome.
Yeah. All right. I think this is a good time to just quickly take a break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Powder Blues is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. That's anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome back to the Powder Blues podcast, and I believe it's my turn.
Yep, we're up to you.
Let me get to this is actually my final point. AJ is a better student. He did more homework than me. Mine kind of does piggyback off of my second point about holding the players accountable and stuff. But the other thing I think is good in a coach of any sport or anything is he's very animated and like doesn't take excuses or anything from anyone. And I think that's a great quality to have. Like when Bryson Didi got hit, he was automatically out there. Whenever someone gets ejected, he is like the first one out there. When something happens, he's like the first one that the umpires got to talk to and potentially throw out. So I think that's a great quality to have in like any coach because that means he cares. It's not like other coaches that kind of just like let it play out because like then it feels like you don't really have that much and it's even worse when like they don't do it for some players and they do it for other players. Joe kind of just does it for anybody. So he's very animated and like he doesn't take excuses from anyone. Well, obviously Gene, we were just talking about it, and just tries to get it.
Yeah, and I kind of agree there. I like that point. I like a guy who will go to bat for their players, when it's needed. Like when Joe Girardi did go out after Gregorius and Harper were hit back to back, and he was complaining about how both benches were giving warnings, and then he pointed to the pitcher and he threw him out himself. And that
Yeah, that was great.
that was great. And then that got Girardi thrown out himself. And then as he was walking off, he pulls down the mask and he looks at the pitcher and he goes, "Get the ball over the effing plate." So I do like Girardi. And he knows that it wasn't, a malicious attempt to throw at players, but you got to get the ball over the plate because you're hurting people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like that Girardi goes to bat for his players, and he doesn't take crap from anybody.
Hmm. He's got that New York toughness instilled in him, and that's a good thing. You know, Philly fans don't take excuses from nobody
Mm-hmm.
down here, so that's a great quality to have.
Yep. So
Ball
yeah,
is in your court.
the ball is in my court. Folks, I have 4 more points left as to why I think he's not good. 4 more. One is huge. It's a doozy. It's like I wrote literally a paragraph of points within this one little bullet point. I'm going to do that one last. So here's the first point. It feels like there are always like problems with his lineups. Like I never feel like whenever the lineup card is submitted, I get a notification, and like I find myself almost every time like having a WTF moment. Like, what is he putting out there right now? There's always some like weird part of the lineup, and it's like I just have these epiphanies of like what's going on. Like, for example, Reese batting 7th. What was that last week? He had him batting 7th, and he's been batting pretty good all season. Like he had that mini cold streak for a couple games, but he's been batting pretty well. So putting him 7th doesn't make sense. And going off of that, he didn't put Reese at cleanup when he was absolutely raking a couple weeks ago. And Reese is doing pretty good now, but like, for the first part of the season, he was like untouchable. Pitchers couldn't get around him most of the time. And he was hot and he wasn't batting cleanup. And all he was doing was driving in runs. And I'm pretty sure most of the time to start the season, he would choose Real Muto in the cleanup spot over Hoskins, which makes to me no sense because JT with runners in scoring position is as good as putting Scott Kingery out there. He can't hit when people are on second and third. I know the numbers this year for that kind of argue against what I'm saying, but it always seems like every year JT sucks with runners in scoring position. JT's good, don't get me wrong, but with runners in scoring position, he looks like he bats like Kingery and has the same approach, which then brings me to, my next point here. Who's not hot right now? Bohm should be benched or maybe even sent down to figure it out because he is struggling. Girardi, it's in his job description to fix Bohm, and he should be benched right now, until he can kind of pull together because he's been struggling pretty much all year, but right now especially. So not just Girardi, but the entire staff needs to do a better job of getting Bohm to really make that adjustment that he needs to in his sophomore year. Because, in the rookie year, they come up, teams aren't familiar with them. The offseason comes, teams analyze, what were his hot zones? What did he do right? And why did he do those things correctly? Why was he so successful? And so teams make that adjustment. And that's why the sophomore slump exists. Bohm is going through that right now. Coaches are not helping him properly and successfully making that counter adjustment, which is why we always see players jump up their junior year. But Bohm needs to get on top of that now. And it is Girardi's responsibility to make sure he's either out of the lineup, so he's not trying to adjust in the middle of a game, because we can't have that. We've got games on the line. We can't have someone trying to, work a swing back while playing. Maybe that's something that he needs to fix behind the scenes, but not during games, because that's costing us runs in some situations. But yeah, I think that this has been a very long point. This was 2-1 here. So I'm wrapping it up for you to talk here in a second. I'm sure you're kind of falling asleep now, but it just feels like Girardi is never 100% right when he puts out a lineup card. It just doesn't feel right ever.
I am not falling asleep. I'm actually awake. So yeah, I as well have the MLB app and get the notification when the lineup card is submitted. And I normally look because the thing about it is ever since Bryce came to Philly, it's always been him, Reese, or Reese, him, or it's always been those two back to back. Depends on the order. Bryce is either batting second or Reese is batting second. Then JT is right after them. So you got your big three punch, and then you got the rest of the lineup. So that to me never really felt strange. I mean, I can see what you're saying. I can see where you should put, like, Reese probably should bat fourth, maybe put JT second or Bryce second, JT third and fourth. I don't think you should break those guys up, because that's our 1, 2, 3 punch right there. So that never really felt weird to me whenever they're like that. It is weird to see like them down in the lineup, like when they're like batting like seventh
Yeah.
or like sixth. That's what's weird. But having them where they are in the lineup, that's kind of how it's been since Bryce got the Philly.
Yeah.
So that
And
never felt weird.
and the reason why Reese, like in recent years, has been up, in like the second hitter or the third hitter, is because he typically draws a lot of walks. This year, that is not the case.
Mhm.
Let's go back. 2018, he was 88th percentile in the league in base on balls. And I'm going to go year by year here. 2019, 98th percentile for Reese Hoskins in the walking category, 93 percentile in his walk average, or the percent of times that he walks. And in 2021, 32. So on average, he walks less than guys. So what is he doing differently? He's barreling the ball more. He's getting the bat on the ball more, and his exit velocity is higher than it has been on average. So Reese is kind of trying to become the guy that he was at first. The power hitter, the guy trying to knock the ball out of the park. And then he kind of took a step back, and he became more of like an on base percentage kind of guy. He draws a lot of walks. He does get hits, but he's on base a lot. But now he's back to, being a guy that he drives and runs.
It all depends on how the player's playing is how you're going to set the lineup card, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And I mean, he has these numbers. Like, if a 19-year-old kid in New Jersey can sit down on the computer and look at this, I'm sure Joe Girardi can too. So, looking at this, if I'm the manager, I'm having Reese bat, cleanup or 5-hole, something where typically you'll see a lot of runners in scoring position are on base, so Reese can just have at it and drive in some runs. So I mean, seventh hole doesn't make sense. High up in the lineup, like he had him early on, it made sense because we didn't know what was going on in the season. But then after a while, it didn't make sense at all. But when he was hot, he should have been batting cleanup or 5-hole. But he wasn't, and that's a big fumble on Girardi's end.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, you know, like I said, the lineup cards never really looked weird to me because, ever since Bryce came to Philly, it's always been those three in whatever order.
Uh-huh.
The only time I ever found it weird was when either of those three were down in the lineup. That's the only thing that seemed weird. But the thing that intrigued me was you said Bohm should be sent down.
Mm-hmm.
That is shocking that you would say that.
I do think
Because,
so.
okay, I will agree with you that he is not the best. He is struggling offensively. But are you willing to give up that defense?
See, it's funny you say that because tonight, Wednesday, he had a couple blunders on defense, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well,
I didn't really watch because I was busy preparing for this, but he was struggling on defense tonight. I think on more than one occasion.
okay. But overall, everyone's going to make mistakes. Bryce drops balls. Reese drops balls. Like everyone has mistakes. Are you willing overall to give up the defense as a whole for that? I mean, I can see benching him, but I don't think sent down because benching and being sent down are obviously, obviously they're two completely different things. But benching, you normally have a timetable of return. If you get sent down, you might never come back up.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
not boom. I think he just needs to be sent down so he can kind of take a step back, get down to the basics, rake on some AAA guys, and then get some confidence back, come back up, and continue that success. But what's amazing with Boom is he's been struggling, but now this was from last night. I wrote this down. When runners are in scoring position, he's hitting 293, which is pretty good. He's driving
yeah.
in runs. He's hitting when it matters. But he needs to get it done more. He needs to get himself on base so others can drive him in, which he's really not doing very well.
Yeah. And I mean, the sophomore slump does exist. So hopefully, I mean, if he does get sent down, hopefully he gets his confidence back and hopefully he doesn't stay down there long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how long would you see him staying down there?
Huh. I mean, it depends on how he responds, in the game. I mean, I think could be as short as maybe a week or as long as a month, or maybe even more. Just as long as it takes for him to really put it all back together.
Yeah. I mean, how long would you bench him then?
Benching, maybe like maybe 3 or 4 games, just so he can kind of put it together. He doesn't have to focus on preparing for games. He can just focus on fixing his, whole, his play in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see the benching more than I could see being sent down because this might be my personal biases, but I could see him being benched. Maybe you try both. Maybe you try the benching first.
Yeah, that's definitely doable.
Because I think being sent down is worst case scenario. Wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Just have to see. Are you ready for your final doozy of a reason?
I actually have 2 points left. Um,
Oh, right. Sorry.
we're gonna blitz through them though because we need to keep this rolling because I have a feeling the time is adding up. We started at 10:30 p.m. It is now 12:12 in the morning. But anyways, back to the nitty gritty here. Going based off of the lineup card, just like a funny little thing to point out here. Remember a couple weeks ago, I mean, arguably cost them the game. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. The lineup card problem a week or two ago with Enel De Los Santos.
That. Okay.
Where Girardi and his team, he's not 100% to blame here, but he submitted an outdated lineup card before they called Santos up. And so then he wasn't able to use Santos, which then meant that he had to go to, I think, maybe Hale. It was a long time ago, but whoever it
It
was,
was Hale. It was Hale.
it
I know
was
it was
Hale.
Hale.
Okay, so it
Yep.
was Hale, which who to begin with shouldn't even be pitching at this level because he sucks. But um,
Right to it.
right to it. And so he shouldn't even be pitching at this level to begin with, but he was forced into the game because Girardi and the gang, they couldn't submit the correct lineup card, which then resulted in a couple of runs being given up. A disastrous inning, I think, ensued. And if I remember correctly, it was, game changing, obviously. And so that's just like one of
Yeah.
many kind of things that stand out to me where, he's not all there the way he was a long time ago. That experience, it's great, but he's not looking very experienced as of late.
I don't remember that game. I don't think I even watched that game. I think I heard about it the next day that something's wrong with the lineup card. Um, and and to be completely fair with you, I'm gonna be fair with everybody. If I didn't have the app, I wouldn't have
I was
known
at
about
Applebee's when that happened.
it. If I didn't have the app, I wouldn't have known about it. So, but yeah, to be fair, I mean to be fair to Joe, I mean Joe can't be the only one that sees that lineup card.
Mm-hmm.
So he like there has to be other people that like go through that lineup card to go back and be like, hey, he's not on this lineup card. So it's not all him. I don't think it's all him. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I didn't watch that game. If I didn't have the app, I wouldn't have even heard about the lineup card thing. So I'm gonna be completely fair with you. I don't want to.
Okay, so that was my second to last point. So here we go. This last one is a doozy. As I said, I have a paragraph of points to make within this one little point. So piggybacking off of, pitchers and the bullpen, Joe Girardi in general, it seems like he just makes bad pitching moves in general as well. He goes to Hale way too often, who, as I said, shouldn't even be pitching at this major league level. And the only time we seem to bring him in is when the opposition's lead over us is so big where it's like, okay, we can burn Hale here instead of, an important arm. And he goes to Hale too often, which results in a larger lead for the opposition, which then makes the comeback harder, which it seems like every time we throw Hale in, just because we feel like the game is almost lost, we start to come back. And then I always find myself thinking, well, if Hale didn't give up like a couple runs there, then this game we would be like tied or in the lead or something. And that's so like irritating that, that's a couple games that you've lost due to that, it feels like. And then continuing on, he unnecessarily puts like Neris in, for example. He unnecessarily puts Neris in at times and like wastes his energy and burns them. Like the Tuesday game, for example, we had a 5-run lead and we should have went to like a less important arm to close out the game, like Matt Moore or something, like maybe even Hale. In order to save the important bullpen arms. And then, he throws Neris in there, which, I mean, I think I could have pitched and saved that 5-run lead.
I mean, it's no surprise that you're not a fan of Neris. So I was kind of like, as soon as you said pitching, I was like, how long is it going to take before he says something about Neris? So that's why I laughed so hard, because I was like, okay, it's really soon. So let's just start with that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Neris should only go in at the bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth, because he is the closer, whether AJ likes it or not. He is. So he should go. He should only only go in the ninth inning. There no time before, so that way he's only technically throwing like 9 pitches on a great night, only 9 pitches. On a bad night, 15. So yeah, that's when he should go in. I agree. He shouldn't go in like the 8th or something. You should like put Hale in or something for that 8th inning.
Mm-hmm.
Just to So yeah, I agree that he shouldn't go in anytime before the 9th inning, because I think that's where he's the best, like with the short stints of pitches. Same thing with Hale. Yeah, like I agree, Hale isn't good, but who are we to say? We're not the ones getting paid to.
True.
It'd be a lot of fun to get paid to make those decisions. I would love to make those decisions, but we're not the one. Obviously the Phillies see something in him that makes him worthy of being called up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really. Well, I mean, you can, but obviously there's something there. But not a lot, but there's something. So yeah, I mean, it's tricky because a game to me is never really out of reach, but in real life to other people, if you're losing 12-0, the game's basically over. I don't care if you have like a 8-run 7th inning, the game's still over because it's the 7th inning. You didn't really do much, and they can just shut you out again. So yeah, I mean, I think Hale should only be used in emergency situations, maybe even extras, because like that Braves game like 2 weeks ago, when we had to like almost ran out of pitchers, that's when he should come in.
Yeah.
Or, well, you can't predict if a game is going to go to extra innings, but that's like the time, like emergency time. We're running out of pitchers, last resort.
And that kind of leads me to my next point, which it deals with Neris. I think Neris should no longer be the closer. Neris, year after year, and again, like the Kapler people,
I knew it.
You knew it. Like the Kapler people, there are people who, like, they put their lives on the line to defend Neris. They're like they protect him. No, I don't mind that. He's a nice guy. He's funny. But as a closer, I think he's not a good closer. He could be a good relief arm. Closing, not so much. It seems like every time he does close, he either blows the save or it's like all over the place. I can't remember a time specifically right now, but I know I remember many times so far this year where we had like a 2 to 3 run lead. We felt pretty confident going into the final inning, and then he comes in and one guy gets on. We're like, okay, it's okay. It's just one guy. And then like he walks someone or they get a little hit and now we got 2 guys on. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to be fine. And then he like loads the bases and we're like, uh-oh, okay, this is happening. And this happens sometimes. And sure, that was an exaggeration, but I mean, and yeah, sometimes he's lights out. He comes out and he strikes out the side or whatever. I think he did that a night or 2 ago. I give credit where credit is due. He has his successful moments, but it seems like, I mean, year after year, he is like in the lower half of the league in terms of save percentages. Last year in 2019, he was in the lower half. 2019, Edwin Diaz of the Mets, he was a horrible closer. Everyone, he was the laughing stock of the league. Diaz, as well as Neris, they had very similar stats in terms of save percentage. I think Neris was ahead by just a couple percentage points. But that just goes to show you he is consistently not a good closer. I don't care what you tell me his ERA is. The percentage of saves that he successfully completes, doesn't ever prove to be very terrific. And he's a good pitcher. But closing, I don't think so. But that leads me to my next point. I think Sam Coonrod should be he should have been named the closer a very long time ago. He's been lights out all year. He at times is almost untouchable, and he's overall just a great relief arm. I believe, in my opinion, he's the best relief arm this season. Over everybody. Um, he's been pitching circles around his teammates, and he would be a much better closer, in my opinion, than Neris. Sure, give it a shot. If it doesn't work, back to Neris. Maybe even try Archie Bradley at closer, since he has experience in that role before. Anyways, I just think we should have moved on to better options for closer a long time ago, because there are simply many more options that I think could potentially work out and be better. And I think that Joe Girardi should have picked up on this a long time ago, and he should have been testing out other guys, and he should have been moving Neris up to be a setup guy, or maybe even sooner. But yeah, and that concludes my last point entirely.
Again, laughing because HA does not like Hector Neris as the closer. So there's not much I can say to really like make him agree with me. Because like he said, don't care what the ERA is, don't care what the save percentage is, not gonna happen. So yeah, but I will say I do agree with the Coonrod thing. I think, he has been lights out all season. Tonight, as of Wednesday, he had a great inning, got out of a bases loaded jam.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that in the ninth inning, you're a pretty, it wasn't the ninth inning, but still, if you can get out of a bases loaded jam in any inning, it's still a good thing to do that you can do. So I would not be opposed at all for Coonrod to be the closer. But, obviously, as much as we can debate about if Girardi's the right guy and stuff, he's the manager for a reason. He's, he knows way more experience than us. And he put Neris there for a reason. He sees something there. Maybe as the season goes on, he'll see what we see. But yeah, I would not be opposed to the Coonrod thing at all, not in the slightest.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in Sam Coonrod this year. It's amazing. Like, we traded him for peanuts because we thought he was going to be average. Last year he wasn't phenomenal. He was pretty average, maybe a little less than average. But this year he's like picked it up. My theory with Sam Coonrod's random jump from average, less than average in San Fran to thrilling here in Philly is that he had the same weird jump that Trevor Bauer did. Now, I'm not saying Sam Coonrod is using substances.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not saying that, but we have the same pitching coach that Trevor Bauer had to make that jump from average to greatness. So yeah. So I do think that the pitching coach, pitching staff, which helped Trevor Bauer, it's helping Coonrod, and it's giving him that same jump in production. Maybe I'm wrong, but Frank, can you take a wild guess and tell me what Coonrod's ERA is this season so far?
1.64.
Lower, 0.95.
Well, that's almost DeGrom level.
Mm-hmm.
What's DeGrom, like 0.6 something?
Jacob DeGrom's ERA this year, so far this season, is 0.68. Holy crap. I did not know it was that amazing.
Yeah, I know. DeGrom's ERA is ridiculous this year.
Yeah.
But wow, that if you're in the decimals of ERA, that's pretty good.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm just taking a look at his advanced stats. They're amazing. Like he's in all of the high percentiles in every single one on the Savant website except for the whiff percentage.
You're slowly turning me against Hector Neris. I think your plan is working.
It is working. So I guess that pretty much does it. Let us know on social media what you think. Who won the debate? Who had the better points?
Who won the debate? Yeah.
Um,
Sup, Wyatt? I said I'd give you a high in the episode.
So yeah, I think that about does it. This feels like it's been a very long episode.
We're gonna look back and it's like not even gonna be that long.
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, keep up with us on social media. We'll try to start posting there more. It's just I've been a little bit busy, but my summer class and work and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's just we're trying our best to maintain those pages, but we're busy men. Send us some messages. We would love to hear and react to some messages while recording on air to play on the episode. It would be great to hear from some of you. We'll try to give more of a heads up next week. But yeah, try to have them, if you're interested, try to have your message submitted by Wednesday evening. And yeah, I think that just about concludes it. Keep up with us outside on social media. Click the links in our bios to find other platforms. And I'm AJ alongside
Frankie D.
And this has been the second episode of the Powder Blues podcast.